Welcome to another podcast in the Ram's Den, and today I'm here with Matthew Glover. Welcome, Matthew. Good to have you here.
David, for having me on your show.
Awesome to have you here. So I actually, when doing a bit of reading about you, learned that a lot of things about you actually, that you're actually doing a lot more than I realized. You're the co-founder of Veganuary, which I did know actually, so that's amazing, of the yearly challenge that gets people to eat plant-based for a month and encourages them to go vegan, stay vegan after. And that's been incredibly successful, right? How many people signed up just this year? Do you have the numbers?
Off the top of my head, it was about 650,000, 630,000, something like that. It was a lot. I mean, the funny thing is, that's only people that sign up on the website. We know that it's a bit like dry January. People do it, but they don't necessarily register on a website to do it. So we think that there's a bit of that going on. So it's difficult to know for sure. But yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster ride over the last 10 years.
It's amazing. It's insane numbers. I couldn't even. It's just incredible success, and it's seriously kudos to that. We'll get into that as well. And obviously the what got me onto you was actually VFC, which you were also co-founder for VFC, Vegan Fried Chicken, the vegan chicken brand, which I've had, and obviously as everybody else who's ranting and raving about it, I'm one of them. It's amazing. It's really good, and you're doing activism with that company as well, which is something that I don't think is heard of for such a popular company. I mean, you see some smaller food brands maybe doing a bit of activism, but yours is actually really big and successful, and you're doing activism, which I don't think you see a lot for obvious reasons. It's not usually the best for business, right?
Yeah, look, we set the business up purely. I don't have this massive desire for people to eat deep fried textured wheat protein. I just want people to not eat chickens, or any animals for that matter. So that's why we set the business up. So it's difficult to hide that sort of mission, really, and we think that it's important to tell the why as well as what it is we sell and how we distribute it.
I think it's amazing because if I were to say whether that would do well or not, if someone said to me, hey, we're going to put together a food company, we're going to do this, and we're going to be clear about the activism side, I'd be like, get ready to fail. I'd say that's never going to fly. No one's going to buy it. They're going to feel too guilty. But yeah, you did it and it worked. And now you've gone international too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say 99% of vegan food businesses are not talking about the animals in the same way that we are. But the interesting thing is, when we've talked to buyers at Tesco and Sainsbury's, they like that about us because we're a little bit different and edgy and sassy and everything in compared. We were a bit worried if we're rabbiting on about the animals all the time that Tesco's are going to be like worried about that and not put us on the shelf. But no, quite the opposite. It's worked in our favour so far. But yeah, we've not succeeded yet. We're only 2 years in. We've got a lot of work to do to be long-term successful. But so far, it's going quite well.
So it's awesome, and it tastes great as well. It's really good stuff. I can't wait to get back to the UK and get some more of it. And then the thing I didn't know about you is that you're also the founder of $1 Million Vegan, which I actually had no idea until I was doing the research for this talk. And so that one's really surprised me because that's a big organization. Like I know loads about the organization, but I didn't know that you were behind it. So that's really cool. And for those that don't know, $1 Million Vegan, so I guess you call it a vegan education charity organization. Would that be the right way of describing it?
So it started off where we offered $1 million to Pope Francis to go vegan for the period of Lent, and that money would be donated to charity. So that's where the $1 million bit comes from, and the vegan challenge, if you like. We had no sort of anticipation that Pope Francis was actually going to agree to this. You can't really buy world leaders in that way, but we felt that it was a great way to raise awareness about, particularly in that campaign, the environmental impacts of animal agriculture, because he'd written previously his encyclical Laudato Si about how as Christians we should be looking after the planet around us and really talking about climate change and looking after other species on the planet. And as we know, animal agriculture is leading cause of a lot of the problems. So it seemed like a logical thing to go to the Pope and say, well, look, Lent is a period of time where you would, as Catholics and Christians, what's the term? Go without certain products. So
like fasting and yeah.
yeah. So why not make it animal products? This is a real opportunity for you to take leadership. So, but we got great deal of media attention from it, particularly in Latin America and Mediterranean countries where Pope Francis is, a hero to many of those regions. Not so much in the UK. We tend to be a bit more secular in our outlook, so we didn't get a great deal of attention over here. But it raised a lot of awareness, and we had a challenge at the side of it for people. Even if Pope Francis wasn't going vegan, you can. That doesn't mean that you can't give it a go for Lent. So we did a lot of education. I'm not involved. I think I'm technically president of $1 Million Vegan, but I'm not involved on a day-to-day basis now. So there's Naomi Hallams, she's the CEO, and then there's a whole team that are running that organisation. Okay. I'm very good at starting things, David, not necessarily that good at carrying on with them, as you'll find out.
Fair enough. I liked that you guys also went after, or those guys went after Donald Trump as well. Not go after, but I liked it when they're challenging him to. That was a good one as well. It's good to go after these. I say go after. I don't. You know what I mean, right? I'm not meaning like take them down or something, but to put them on the spot, it's good because it raises a lot of awareness. And he ended up saying some really stupid stuff, didn't he? He said like,
"That's right."
If I went. Yeah, he said something. What was it like? If I went vegan,
so
lose brain cells.
We found out afterwards that the press secretary had mentioned it to Donald Trump when he was president, and he said something along the lines of, "I don't want to lose any more brain cells" or something like that. Which, I mean, I'm not going to comment politically on that, but it's I thought it was like ironic.
Exactly. Yeah, I think. I mean, obviously, we don't know the tone of it, right? It could have been that he was mocking himself, that like, I don't have brain cells to lose. Or it could have been that he genuinely thinks that eating a plant-based diet is going to make him dumb. Like, I don't know which it was. Could have been a bit of both. But either way, it's cool that he actually acknowledged it. That's the point, isn't it? That gets the media talking. Oh, Donald Trump won't go vegan.
Yeah.
That's the point of it, right? The point is that he actually acknowledged it.
We got a lot of criticism for that campaign from people within the movement, which is I get it, I understand it. I think on the flip side, we were the focus was to try and engage with a more of a conservative, socially sort of conservative right-wing audience, which most of the vegan animal rights movement tend to avoid or certainly not effectively engaging with them. So it was really an attempt to raise awareness. We got on Fox News and some of those titles as well. I'm not saying we were hugely successful, but it was worth a try.
I mean, they're the ones. It's kind of funny how we have this big stigma in animal rights vegan circles of that these people are all evil, they can't be changed, and it's like, but actually there's a lot of them, and they're the toughest to change, and there's a hell of a lot of them. People assume that they're only like conservatives, just this small little minority, but they're not. There's a lot of these people that, in fact, I'd go as far as saying a good 95% of the population of the world is conservative when it comes to food, right? So if you're not going to engage with people with conservative ideals, then okay, well, what, you're going to deal with that 5% of progressives and that's it? Because when it comes to food, practically everyone's a conservative. So you got to open
totally
that up,
agree.
Right?
That being said, I mean, if we're just 2% of the audience of the world at the moment that's vegan, let's say at the moment, and there's maybe another 5% or so that's vegetarian, certainly in Western countries, then does it make sense to get from 2 to 3% and then from 3 to 4%? And how do you do that? Well, you target the demographics which are most likely to agree with you. I think in terms of effective vegan advocacy, there is a logic to focusing more on like-minded people, which would tend to be younger people, more urban, more more likely to be women than men, unfortunately, for various reasons.
Macho reasons.
Yeah, yeah, and I think also just that we do tend to have more success with people that are left leaning and liberally minded, of course. So
Yeah, yeah,
so there is a
definitely.
logic to focusing on those. But in that particular campaign, we tried a different thing,
Yeah,
and we had
yeah.
some success, I would say.
Yeah, I think it was worth doing because at the end of the day, you still reached that same audience, the liberal progressives,
Yeah,
through that campaign because they're still looking and now they're all laughing at Trump. Well, that's
yeah.
great, isn't it? At the end of the day, it still worked out.
Well, people that don't
Um,
like Trump might look at it and think, oh, okay, I'm a little bit more aligned to the vegans than I thought I was.
Absolutely. I'll do the
Yeah.
opposite of whatever he does. He's not going vegan. Okay, I'm going vegan. It worked out, I
we,
bet.
we had that with Veganuary when Piers Morgan started attacking the Veganuary campaign. We had people
Oh,
signing up
Piers.
just because Piers Morgan didn't like Veganuary. So,
Love that. Love that. It's great how that works out, isn't it? People people really hate him, but he brings it on himself. I don't have any sympathy for him, to be honest. When I was doing a bit of more reading about you, and I was surprised to see that you have about the most, let's say, anti-vegan background possible. From your family background. I mean, coming from that. So I mean, tell us a bit about your kind of like your family history, which I won't tell them for you. You could tell us about it, and then
yeah,
how
sure.
did you go from that to veganism and now doing all this amazing work?
So on my mother's side, her father and brother, so my uncle and granddad, were meat traders. So I spent part of my sort of childhood, those formative years, in and around butchers' shops and slaughterhouses. So there was a particular slaughterhouse in Huddersfield, which is no longer there. It's a Next shop at the moment now
Right, that's
in
good.
that location. But yeah, I remember as a sort of a young child walking around and seeing carcasses, of
Right.
animals hung up and people in rows, chopping these bodies, into pieces, and
Mm,
I mean, I don't remember feeling overly upset by it. It was just the way it was. That was what the family business was. Um,
yeah.
Although I did get an understanding from a very early age that the meat that was on my plate or in a packet in the fridge had come from an animal origin, which I think a lot of children these days don't necessarily make that connection so quickly.
No. No.
And I think as a child, I never really, I didn't particularly enjoy eating meat. I would be one of those weird kids that ate the vegetables first and put the meat to one side. And I understand, David, you were vegetarian, being brought up vegetarian, which I'm very jealous of. But no, for me, it was with it being the family business. You've really got to eat your meat, really. So.
Mm,
But I've always felt really uncomfortable about it. I never really enjoyed eating anything with lots of fat or gristle, So it would be, I think as a lot of people are, the chicken nuggets and the chicken breast was easier to eat because it didn't
mhm.
remind me so much of an animal. I couldn't have eaten a pork chop or anything like that. That was
Right.
too much of a reminder. Um, and then at the age of 28, I don't know something. There wasn't. It wasn't that I watched a video or particularly there was anything that I didn't read a book. I didn't talk to anybody. For some reason, I just thought I just don't. I'm not enjoying eating meat anymore, and I just don't feel that this is the sort of person that I want to be that eats meat. So I just stopped eating meat and became
Right.
vegetarian. But of course, when you go vegetarian, you eat more dairy and eggs than probably what you did previously because you
Yeah.
substitute. Like instead of having a ham sandwich, you have cheese sandwich or an egg mayonnaise sandwich. So I went through 10 years as a vegetarian.
Especially back.
Um,
I mean, what year was that? Then would you say when you? I don't know how old you are when you were
yeah, so
28.
I'm 50 now. So
Okay.
this was 11, just over 11 years ago that I went vegan.
So
So
when
that
did you
was
go veggie? I mean, sorry.
that would have
What
been
year was that? Do you think?
22 years ago, so about 2000.
Okay,
Uh,
because what I was saying was like back then, especially, the vegan stuff was just not around. So you were definitely eating more dairy, definitely more eggs. As I was growing up vegetarian, because it's, it's either that or nothing when you're out and about, right? Because we didn't have the knowledge and the products weren't very good. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I remember. So I used to go to a local sandwich shop in Wakefield. So at the time, in my sort of 30s, I was running a double glazing company. That was my world. And we were manufacturing UPVC windows and doors. And for lunch, I'd nip round to the local sandwich shop and stand in the queue, and everybody around me was getting bacon sandwiches and ham set beef, all that. And I was the guy that was always ordering egg mayo or cheese. So they knew me as a vegetarian back then. And that was a bit odd. Do you know what I mean? In that location. But
trust me, I know, mate. My entire childhood, it was always being the weird one. I 100% feel that. Yeah. Even veggie was the weirdest thing back then. Yeah.
Yeah. So 11 years ago, I stumbled across this video, and it was called the video "The Meat Industry Doesn't Want You to See," and it was. I was starting to pay a lot more attention to environmental issues and climate change, and reading about it, and trying to make my window company a little bit more environmentally friendly, that type of thing. And then watched this video, and it's only 5 minutes long, and it was fronted by Paul McCartney. And it was a website called meat.org. If you ever go and have a look at that, it's still there. It's a bit of an old video now. But I watched this video, and it had scenes of cruelty in the egg and the dairy industry that I just hadn't even, I'm a 38-year-old guy, and I've never really thought about any of that at all. And it just hit me so hard. And overnight, I realized I had to be vegan. Even though I didn't know what veganism was or anything, I was never been an animal rights person. I'd still used to go to the horse races. I would have leather seats in my car. I'd wear leather shoes and leather belts and all that type of stuff. I was just somebody that didn't eat meat. And then that video just sent me on a voyage of discovery, really, and started learning about speciesism and animal rights. Within about a year, I found out that there was a movie called Speciesism, the movie. I don't know if you've seen it. Mark DeVries is the director of it. And I'd started donating to various different causes, and I'd sent some money to Mark towards his project. And he said, "Hey, Matthew," he said, we're launching we've got the premiere of the movie, and it's in Washington, D.C. at the Animal Rights Conference. And I was like, "There's an animal rights conference? Wow. I need to go to that." So, I booked flights to Washington, D.C. and turned up this guy running a double glazing company. I went in with a suit on and everything. I looked a bit odd, really. I was the only Brit. I think I was the only, or there's maybe one other Brit that was there out of 1,000 people. So I stood out. And I just learned and just listened to everybody and just absorbed all this information and came back an animal rights activist. So that was really...
That's such an incredible story to go from the start, in a family of, meat processing and seeing all of that through to going to an animal rights conference and starting massive organizations making an impact on millions of people. I mean, wow, what a story. It's incredible, man. It really is. What you do with both Veganuary and $1 Million Vegan, well, at least you're still heavily involved with Veganuary, right? I've seen you doing interviews and stuff about that still, right?
Yeah, so with Veganuary, again, we've got a CEO, Ria Rayberg. So she's based in Berlin, so she's the CEO, runs the organization. There's a senior management team as well. Very proud that it's a fully female-led senior leadership team there that runs it. And then myself...
I suppose it makes sense considering what you said earlier about, there are way more women in the...
Well...
that are vegan, right? So it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. And there would be more women in these positions, yeah.
Yeah, and just they get their heads down and do it rather than talking about it like me and you, David.
Fair enough.
No, I mean
Fair enough. Fair
Ria's
enough.
really impressive, and the whole team are doing a superb job. And so me and Jane, my wife, we were the two
Mhm.
co-founders of Veganuary, and she
Okay.
the two of us sit on the board. So I'm
Mhm.
chair of the board, and we've got 7 other
Okay.
trustees. So we provide, I guess, that sort of oversight and charitable governance because we're a UK registered charity now, so everything's got to be done,
Okay.
in compliance with UK charity law. So we,
Mhm.
I chair the meetings and we go through everything. But from an operational day to day basis, then I'm not really that involved anymore.
Fair
I
enough.
guess I'm a bit
Fair
more
enough. Yeah.
ambassadorial. So once you've, I mean, I was the
Right.
guy that came up with the word veganuary. So in the early days, me and Jane were running it just as a hobby, if you like. The profits that we were
Yeah.
making from our window business was funding this sort of weird campaign that we had idea, and
Right.
it was just the two of us to begin with, and then as it started to develop, we started to grow up and evolve as an organisation and to try and get
Mm.
funding from other sources and donations that would allow us then to take staff on, and then we try and get corporate sponsors
Mhm.
to help, and obviously all those corporate sponsors help fund it, and then we could take more staff off and just sort of grow the organisation that way.
What I like about both of them is that they offer like an alternative to they kind of so they're both very family friendly, and I think there's definitely a place for that, a big place for that in trying to get people to go vegan, because obviously not everybody is up for like a hardcore debate and a fight. Some people just like they're just they've got a family to feed, and both of the Veganuary $1 Million Vegan have an approach that I would say is very suitable for people who are learning about this for the first time. It's very calm kind of messaging. It's stern. It's not like you're avoiding the topic, but it's not like non-judgmental. It's family friendly, and that vibe is like I said, it's a necessary vibe for a lot of people. But VFC is a little bit different, right? And I'm wondering, is this a was this a conscious decision to make VFC a bit more spicy? And because I've seen you roasting meat flakes, which I don't know if you've heard the term meat flake before, but it's do you know what a meat flake is?
No, I don't. No, sorry, missed that one.
So I didn't make it up, but I thought I made it up. Somebody else. I checked on Urban Dictionary after I thought I'd invented it. Somebody else bloody made it. I couldn't believe it. But basically, it's like snowflakes. We get called snowflakes, right?
I
Vegans all the
see.
time.
Right, I'm with you. Yeah,
Right. So this is a meat flake. It's people who get offended by vegans. You could just
yeah.
say, "Hey, we should go vegan," and that's enough. They'll flip out, right?
Mm.
So you guys are roasting them on a pretty much consistent basis. That using them as the basis for ads and reels and stuff, and it's such a different vibe to like Veganuary and $1 Million Vegan. So like, what's was yeah? Tell me the story behind that, and who's driven that decision, and tell us
So
how
we
it
have
came about.
we have so we call them cluckwits, which is
Yeah.
obviously a play on words. The word normally begins with an F. So
Yeah.
basically, the people that come and troll us, and we get so many. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of stick that we get online. But rather than just hide the comments or delete them, which I guess probably some food brands do, or just ignore them, we try and engage with them and in a sassy way, and then once a month we do what's called Cluckwit of the Month, where we share our favourites, their comment and our sort of sassy reply. So yeah, we like to have. I mean, I've had people saying that we're bullying the trolls, but they started it. Is my view.
But the thing is, right? It's not like you're going personal or deep or anything like that. You're just usually just commenting on what they've said, and there's no personal insults there. There's nothing about them as a person, like what they look like or anything like that at all. So I don't see how that's bullying. It's just it's banter.
Well,
I see it as banter, if anything.
I agree. No, I agree, and it's so we've got a team, but also I think my wife Jane, she's got a wicked sense of humour. She really has, and she's so good at this. And she tends to be like, on an evening, you'll just see her on the phone, and I'll be like, "Are you chatting with your mates again?" In other words, are you chatting with trolls on social media? And she just sees it as a competition, really. How can she outwit these guys, you know? And they nearly always are guys, by the way. So it's at least 90% middle-aged white men from, you know, from the UK or southern states of the United States quite often.
Right.
But she's just got this great way with them. So, you know, I think whether or not we continue doing that longer term, or whether we've got to grow up a little bit when we get a bit bigger, I don't know. But at the moment, we're having fun with it, and I think we're sort of known for not sort of lying down and taking it as such.
I love it. I love it. I'm a big fan of that. And anyone who's watches my videos knows that we had a weekly thing called Meat Flakes of the Week in a weekly series that I was doing. Just finished season 2 of that now. And yeah, I do the same thing. I actually respond to them like just straight up, like read the comment and say a response. So it's like a similar thing. Yeah. So when I saw you guys were doing that, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I love that. It's amazing.
Well, and the funny thing is, it's not just the vegans that find it funny. I think I've so many friends that are not vegan that have said, oh, just absolutely love your comebacks to those folks. So,
do you have a favorite? Do you have one that stands out as like your favorite, well, not favorite comeback, but your favorite like cluckwit that you've seen?
I don't know. We get a lot of people saying, "I'd rather eat." So it could be, I'd rather eat dog poo covered in breadcrumbs, or I'd rather eat glass. You know, that type of stuff. To be honest, I want to put these on billboards because I think they'd be quite funny. Just like, you know, you know, I'd rather eat dog poo wrapped in breadcrumbs on a big billboard in Shoreditch with our product. Nothing else, just that.
Right. That's pretty good. I saw you did a great ad, and it was like someone's comment that said, "Oh, you're never going to go anywhere. Your business is going to fail. You'll never get in supermarkets," or something like that. And then it was like, boom, now available in Tesco. It was such a good ad. Oh my god, I loved it. Yeah. It's so good that you've got a team who's watching for these comments, and I guess they bank them, and they're like, oh, that'll be great for when we're releasing it in Tesco. That'll be great for, you know.
That's exactly it. So Jane, you can hear her chuckling to herself sometimes. She's come up with something funny, and then she screenshots it, and she's got a whole library of these, which then get put forward, and we allow people to vote on the best cluckwit of, you know, for the cluckwit of the month. So it's like a democratic process. But yeah, I mean, that's just one part of what VFC is doing. I mean, we've got a food truck, so you know, we take that food truck out on the road. We went to King's Cross station and did a day there a couple of months ago, and we served something like 3,000 people free
amazing
vegan fried chicken. And I would say 98% of people love the product when they try it. We get such good feedback from it. A lot of people saying, you know, I just can't believe this isn't chicken. So, and that's what it is. We're trying to produce products that are going to be as close as possible to giving people that same sort of mouthfeel and taste and texture that they're used to with chicken, so that it becomes an easy switch for people. So yeah, we've been trying to sort of crack the United States as well. We were at the Natural Organic Expo West again a couple of months ago, and Veg News were trying all the different vegan products, and out of 26 vegan chicken products, they ranked us number 1. So we were really pleased with that, because you've got some big competition over there. There's a lot of money going into this space, and like Beyond Meat have brought a chicken product out. There's Quan trading over there as well. For us to come out as Veg News' favourite vegan chicken product was great. So, but we're still, you know, we're on version 2 at the minute, and version 3 should be coming out in the autumn, which we think is an improvement on the current product. And we're going to be like an iPhone. There's going to be VFC version 9 at some point, and version 13.
Nice.
Yeah,
I did want to ask you about that, actually, about because obviously I don't know, I've never tried fried chicken, but people who have eaten it say it is really similar, and some people can't even tell the difference. Like, what's the process of you checking that? I mean, because you've got to get the right texture, the right taste. Like, how are you actually going about it? Like, are you bringing people in and they try it and then they give you feedback? Or like, what's the process to get it right? That's what I'm trying to get to. Yeah.
Yeah, so we work with the co-manufacturer that's got the all the technology. The team there have been working on plant-based proteins for a number of years. So there's sort of proprietary technology there, and there's a lot of expertise going into sort of textured wheat proteins, textured plant proteins generally, whether it's pea, whether it's soy. So, there's a lot of development work going in the background. We've now got a head of product development who joined us recently. Again, we've spent the last 5 years working on plant proteins. So there's a lot of science going on in the background to perfect what we're doing. We do panel it. We panelled it with an audience of flexitarians in the UK. And then we take all of that data and compare it and improve on it. So it's difficult. Some people say, oh, it's not crunchy enough. Some people say it's too crunchy. Oh, there's not enough salt in it. Some people say, oh, it's too much salt. So you've got to try and work out and get the right balance. But I'll be honest with you, David, we're not there yet. It's not how it needs to be going forward. I think it's 80% there, and a lot of people really do like it. But to really win over the majority, we've still got work to do. Not just us, all of the plant-based companies that are out there.
I mean, there's always going to be room for improvements, right? But I personally, I love it. But then again, you can't use me as a to judge it on, because I've never eaten fried chicken before. So but my review is still solid. I still think it's great, and I'm excited to try it at the campout as well. You're going to be the van you just mentioned is going to be there, right, at the vegan campout.
The cluck truck, we call it, yes.
The cluck truck.
Yes, we're looking forward to vegan campout. We were supposed to be there last year, and then the truck just got delayed with COVID and Brexit and everything else. It just wasn't quite ready, so we had to pull out at the last minute. So yeah, we're very excited about being there this year. So the team's all ready to talk to our sort of core demographic, if you like, and because we went to the Download Festival recently. We've got
oh really?
Yeah, a number of other festivals. As
I
well.
Bet that was good, huh?
Yeah, and actually we were I think by far the most visited of all of the food trucks there. The queue to VFC was always a long queue of people wanting it. It was a bit embarrassing, really, for the other food vendors, but it's just great, that vegan fried chicken is not just for vegans; it's also for metalheads. We've worked out.
I mean, I went to Download a long time ago, but I worked there once as well. But I mean, these festivals, even though things have things are a lot different now than they were 10, 15 years ago, but food vendors don't seem to change. They still stick to the same dirty, greasy, nasty food. So I imagine when VFC pops up, and I bet your van's nice and clean, and I bet it all looks good and it looks prim and proper, and it's also like people aren't worried about getting food poisoning because it's not meat. I mean, it's no wonder that you got a queue constantly, because trust me, these places, there's I've worked in them, as I've been to them, there's nothing even close to that. So even as a full-on meat eater, they probably still don't want to eat the crap from those other places. So that's why I said, as soon as you said Download, I was like, I bet you smashed it. No doubt for that reason alone.
Yeah. I think there's probably my understanding is that there's probably a correlation between people that go to Download Festival and people that are vegan as well. It's like a counterculture sort of way of thinking. So I would imagine that it's probably more than 2% of the Download visitors are vegan anyway. So we were really popular.
And so speaking of camp out, just on that for a second, because there's been a bit of a, I'm sure you've seen there's been a bit of a debate around it.
You were going to ask me about this.
It's not that I'm not going to get into that actually, but it's about you. It's about you. I'm not going to drag you into the drama and because that's a whole other thing. But there are vegans, and it's linked to this. There are a lot of vegans and a lot of, I don't even know a lot. Okay, loud people who have a serious problem with what they call plant-based capitalism, plant-based consumerism, and it's kind of linked with the camp out, because that's practically what it is. Let's be honest. It has activism stuff going on, which is fantastic, but its primary goal is to make money, right? And so I guess people could take that same stance with VFC, even though that's not all what you do, which we're going to get to in a second, the activism you do. But I mean, how would you respond to the kind of person who sees VFC or sees any other, vegan meat alternative and says, "Oh, this is all capital. We need to end capitalism. This isn't. We need this to stop. This is part of the problem." Like, how do you respond to those people?
Well,
If you've ever had to respond?
Yeah,
I
I mean, I have
yeah.
sympathy for it. I mean, there's a lot of things that capitalism's getting wrong in society. Clearly, in terms of those huge differentials between the rich and the poor. So, I sort of agree with a lot of that. The reality is, at the moment, though, we're in a particular system, and I'm more focused on how do we get as many people within the current sort of system of how we organise ourselves to eat plant-based foods. So it's not my job. I'm not a political person as such. I'm an animal rights person. So I'm just doing my best as an individual to make the right calls. In terms of VFC, I can tell you that it's majority owned by Veg Capital, which is a VC fund that I also founded, and that VC fund is committed to giving all of our profits to charity. So from all of the investments that we've ever made, if any of those companies we make a profit on them, they will be given to effective animal protection organisations, to diet change organisations, to grassroots vegan activism, to sanctuaries. This is where the money from Veg Capital will go, and VFC is our main investment. So, if you're buying from VFC, I mean, we're not making profits yet. We're way off making profits, but whenever we do, then that profit will be, or a big chunk of it is going to be going to animal rights causes. And I see it as being this virtuous circle, if you like. If people are buying products from us or Veg Capital portfolio companies, then, a big chunk of that is going to then get reinvested in the movement, so that we can increase the number of vegans, which then makes it so that there's more products, there's more demand for the products, and then we can get more shelf space on supermarkets. I think I'm just, I'm a pragmatist with a bit of an extremist edge, is the best way to describe it. Where I have these extremist views, where I want to cut the system, but at the same time, I realise that at the moment Tesco's selling a lot of chicken. How can we displace some of that chicken? Sainsbury's is selling a lot of cheese. How do we get plant-based cheese in there? How do we get it into supermarkets and stuff? There's actually a video on YouTube, if you Google it, and it was why KFC, McDonald's and Unilever are not the enemy. It's about 40 minutes long. I gave the talk at Vevolution. This was prior to the pandemic. And I argue a case for not boycotting organisations that are developing plant-based products, and how when you buy a vegan burger from McDonald's, it's actually a vote for a better world, and that's my perspective. So I'd recommend people go watch that video, where you get a much fuller answer than the way I'm blabbering on about it at the moment.
Sure, I'll check that out. I'll watch that, actually, because I've had a personal change myself because of people like yourself who've kind of convinced me of a different way of thinking and kind of pulled me out of this kind of ideological bubble, because I think a lot of people are radical for the sake of being radical, and it's kind of like pointless radicalism, principled radicalism that has no outcomes. So what's the point holding a radical principle if it has actually no impact on anything? Like if a more pragmatic if a more pragmatic approach would change things for the better, but a radical one actually is probably neutral because nothing happens. If you boycott KFC or don't buy the vegan burger at KFC, nothing happens, right? That's my point. It's like a neutral, but if you buy it, something happens. And if that something has a potential of being good, then what's the point in holding that principle of no KFC? That's it's hard to be rational because we all know KFC is doing what it's doing, which
Yeah.
actually nicely leads us on to the next topic that we're going to talk about. You actually earlier we were talking about going after people. This time you actually did go after them. This is an example of you going after KFC as VFC, which, by the way, is that takes some serious guts as a company, Vegan Fried Chicken, to go after and expose KFC. So please, I watched the video. For those that haven't, I'll put a link in the description. You can see now, and I'll maybe put the thumbnail up on the screen so you see which one to go watch. Go watch it, then come back here because you need to see this. So talk me through this because this is crazy what you did. So there was the yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. I said talk. I said go ahead, then I started talking. That doesn't make any sense. Please go ahead and tell us.
No, as I was saying, I'm the pragmatist, but with this extremist, or probably a better word is radical sort of angle, which is you mentioned as well. But I think what happened with that was we have a VFC's got a bit of a WhatsApp group, the team, and one of the team members had noticed that KFC had put a sponsored post out with where they'd taken a YouTuber called Nico Omilana to one of their sort of flagship farms. And we watched the video, and it was just so clearly a sugar-coated view of what factory farms are like. So the birds were only about 15 days old. So they're small, they're cute looking at that point in time. Within these big sheds, it looks like they've got a lot more space than what they do look like when they're 35 days old, where they're all crammed together and they've got no room to move. They'd cleared all of the dead bodies up because there is a mortality rate in these factory farms of about 5%. So, part of the farmers or farm workers' job is to clear all of the dead out. And so that had been done. They put new bedding down, and part of the filming, they were like scattering this new sort of sawdust, or they called it straw. There was little clever things like Nico was filmed and there was a wind turbine in the background, and, to sort of imply that this is somehow an eco farm. When we got to the actual farm, we found out that in actual fact, that wind turbine was on somebody else's farm. Very clever little ways of sort of painting this picture. The farm was called a chicken whisperer. So we're looking at all this, and we were just offended because I've been in so many factory farms myself, and I just know that they're just not like that. So we went on a sleuthing mission, really. How do we find out where this farm was? Googled, the name of the farmer. We looked into KFC supply chain. Started looking on Google Earth at different farms that looked like they had that same sort of, positioning with the wind farm and all that sort of stuff in the background. So we found the farm, went in, did a recce on it, identified that we were 100% convinced it's the same farm that KFC had filmed in. And we decided to go back when birds were at around 35 days, so very close to the slaughter age. And we just sort of filmed it properly, really, filmed the reality. We filmed the wheelie bins, that were piled up with dead birds. We filmed dead birds in the farm itself. We filmed birds that were struggling to stand up and in distress. It was obviously it's a trespass situation, so there's a risk associated with it. When you go into these factory farms, it's a civil offence rather than a criminal offence. So it would take the farmer or the company to decide to take a civil action. We didn't break in because there was an open door, thankfully, so we were able to just walk in and do the filming. We do it in the middle of the night while the farmer and the farm workers are asleep. And we basically then pieced our footage together with KFC's footage to show this is what Nico was shown and this is what we've seen. And we just flitted between the two in a video. And it's had at least 12 million views, so it went viral. It's the first time I've been viral, David. But it really resonated with people, I think, because we called out KFC, and because we were able to catch them out so clearly, exaggerating animal welfare, that it
Yeah.
resonated with people.
It's embarrassing for Nico as well, because I mean, this guy, I've seen a few videos by this guy. He seems like a nice enough guy, but I mean, there's no way in hell he didn't have concerns when he went in that farm. I mean, I've been in these places. The heat, the smell, the
Yeah,
sound, like
yeah.
it's so jarring. There's no he must have had to really fight through that for the paycheck, and it's embarrassing for him as well, isn't it? And I reckon it probably even got more viral because his fans were like, "What the look at he's promoting, and then look what the reality is." I'm sure a lot of his fans were disappointed with that as well.
Well, he
With
took the post down. He
oh,
took the
did
post
he?
down. Yeah, yeah. His original post is
Right.
now not on his feed. If Nico by any chance is watching this, I would love to go back to another farm without KFC and Moy Park, knowing about it, and film the reality of factory farms with him, and because he's got a big audience. I think he is a good guy. I
It's
think, as you
huge
say,
audience.
but he's a young guy, and he's probably trying to monetize his platform, and
Of course, yeah,
if
of
a big
course.
blue chip company comes along and says we want to give you X amount of money, I can understand it. But
It's
yeah,
still pretty fresh. Do you think there's a possibility of maybe $1 Million Vegan doing something with him, like publicly doing a thing like, "Hey, we'll give X to X charity of your choice if you do this," because it's so fresh and because he has such a big audience. I mean, maybe he would take it up to try and save face. That's a potential, right?
I hadn't thought of that, David, but it's a good idea.
Yeah,
I'll take that idea and speak to Naomi, who runs $1 Million
go for
Vegan,
it.
see what she thinks.
I reckon you'd go for it. But amazing that that you didn't just set this up and send people in to go do this, to go into this farm. You went in yourself, which, as I don't know if people watching this aren't aware, but as founders of companies don't tend to do things like this. It's usually someone further down the line, which is fair enough. Because you're the head of the company. It's not like you're expected to do something like this, but it's still amazing that you went in there with your team, and you're the face of the video as well, which is a
I
lot of
couldn't stop
pressure.
myself, David. It's just like I was so incensed with what I'd seen, and I just felt that I'm happy to do it, and I'm happy to risk it. And there was a concern. In fact, we even started the video stating we might get sued by KFC for this.
Mm.
Interestingly, we're probably 2.5 months since the video was shared, and there's been nothing from KFC. I mean, on LinkedIn, I tag every post I put. I tagged in KFC UK and Ireland into my post, like sort of poking them a little bit, and
Yeah, yeah.
nothing. And it's interesting that I think this is the attitude with a lot of companies like KFC and animal-based industries, that they just hope it goes away. They just keep quiet.
That
It's not,
exactly,
it,
exactly. They
and
know
it's
if they
not in
go down
their
the
interest.
legal route. If they go down that legal route, they know what's going to happen because you're the master of this, not them, right? So they go to toe to toe with you. They're losing every time because they don't know how to handle you, but you know exactly how to handle them. So there's they could try and throw their weight around, but it will all end up in tears for them, guaranteed, right? That's what it is.
I'd be very, very happy if KFC tries to sue us, David. It would be great
Yeah,
news. So, but unfortunately, they haven't done so far. Um, so we keep on.
yeah.
If them or any other organisation wants to sugarcoat animal welfare, then watch out, because not
You'll go
just
for
what
them.
we're not VFC's doing, but as activists generally, we should be calling out these companies for doing that. Um,
Hmm.
but it's one of those where I did finish that video off by stating, look, you can still shop, you can still buy from KFC, but they've got a vegan burger. Go and buy the vegan burger from KFC. You don't need to eat these animals, and that's my perspective. It's a little bit more nuanced, um, but
Yeah, I found that to be actually a really interesting closing statement because it's so unexpected, right? Because everyone's expecting you to say, boycott KFC, but you actually said, hey, but you can still go, and that I can imagine that also contributed to the virality of it, because it's not like you're preaching from a, what they people say, preaching from a high horse, blah blah blah. You're not saying like I'm so much better than Cape. You're saying no, still go if you want, just don't buy the food that comes from all this. And I think
Yeah.
that a lot of vegans are, I imagine, were very upset, but that's not for them anyway. You know what I mean? It's not. You're
Do you
not
know, I've
trying to
not.
impress the vegans, and
Yeah, I don't spend a lot of
yeah.
time on social media, David, but I haven't noticed a great deal
Okay.
of criticism of me saying that. But
Okay.
yeah,
That's good. That's
maybe.
good. That's good. I would imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
maybe the team are
as
just
someone who's
keeping it from
faced,
me.
could be, yeah, it could be. As someone who faces criticism from vegans practically every day, I would assume that they would be critical. But yeah, good. That don't get in the comments, man. It's not even worth it, to be honest with you. And
Never
it's
look
good
at
that
the
most of your
comments.
comments. No, no. It's good that most of your comments do come from non-vegans, though. So at least you hit the right demographic. But
Yeah.
vegan drama is definitely not the one. I get too caught up in it. I'll be honest. And I don't know
Yeah.
if you ever do. I don't know if you ever pay attention to it, but it's probably better to avoid it. Yeah, the vegan drama.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I'm quite big on LinkedIn as
Okay.
a that's my main social media channel, so it tends to be a
Oh,
much
okay.
friendlier sort of audience there, from what I can see.
Cool.
I hardly
Nice.
ever look at my Facebook these days, and I don't have an Instagram account. And Twitter, there's
That's
nothing
very
happens there
smart.
anyway.
Twitter, yeah, stay away from Twitter. That's the one. That's the devil. If there's any of them to never get, it's Twitter, right?
Yeah.
100%. So I guess what we've established from this talk is that you've absolutely had your hands and have still got your hands in many pies. In a lot of things going on. Activism. In terms of like plant-based alternatives. Some of the biggest organizations out there. You've started them up and are still somewhat involved in them as well. So I'm going to ask you a really tough question, right? You've got I'd say three main types of organization here that you've directly started and been involved in. So you've got the Vegan Challenge, you've got a vegan education charity, and a vegan food brand. And obviously, I know they're not completely siloed and they overlap. But let's just, for the sake of this, let's just put it there. Here's a tough question. From your personal experience, if you had to get rid of two of them, right, they have to go. Which would you keep based on how effective it is at bringing change? So which type,
Oh,
not necessarily the exact organizations, but the type of organization. I'm not saying like, oh, get rid of million. I mean like a vegan education, a vegan challenge, or vegan food. Which would you say you would keep to try and make people change?
do I have to answer that one? That's like killing one of my babies. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because I love them all.
I guess I
I,
just wanted to know which you think
I
is
mean,
is,
look,
is working the
yeah,
best.
yeah.
Yeah.
What I would say is the thing that me and Jane are most proud about is Veganuary and the impact that that's
Okay.
had in society. But that doesn't mean that I want to lose the other things. But Veganuary is, I think, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's mainstream. It's I would say most people in the UK have heard of it. They might not
Hmm.
like it. They might not participate in it, but it's cut through. Um,
Okay.
so that's something that we're very proud of. I think maybe sort of without sort of changing your question, I feel like there's the supply and demand, and that's what I've been doing. I've been working on the demand side of things, which is like Veganuary and Million Dollar Vegan, trying to create more vegans or trying to create
Hmm.
more interest in plant-based products. And then through Veg Capital and VFC, I've been working more on supplying the demand. And because there's no point people going vegan and then it's just too difficult for them, so that they then go back
Mm.
to how they were. So trying to work on that. But the reality is the two sides of the coin, you need both really. And one
Yeah.
of the things that I am a little bit worried about at the moment is that the movement has potentially like hit rocky times over the last 12, 18 months. Certainly in the UK, it's like, but I think it's also globally. We're just not getting there fast enough. It's plateaued a bit. If you look at Google
Hmm.
Trends for the term vegan, it's on a downwards trajectory at the moment.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
we look at again, I'm speaking more from the UK at the moment, but if you look at the categories of plant-based foods, they're either not growing, or they're not growing very fast, or they're in slight decline. Now, I know there was a bit of a COVID thing that could mitigate
Yeah.
it, but there does seem to be a bit of a slowdown in excitement around vegan plant-based. So what does that mean? It means we've got to try a lot harder, and we've got to be a lot more effective. And so I think that's, my sort of immediate future is trying to balance both, but probably I feel like I want to get a bit more involved in the why, and working on projects that continue to create more vegans if we can, or create more demand for products, as well as trying to invest in businesses that are helping on the supply side. I think that there is a challenge whereby the people are sort of open-minded to trying the products, and then they try them and they're just not quite good enough yet.
Right. Okay.
I think they're getting better all the time, and we will get to a tipping point where typically plant-based products are going to be better than the equivalent. But the feedback that we're getting from flexitarians, non-vegans, is that we're just not quite there yet.
Okay.
Particularly like cheese, for example. I mean, there's some great cheese brands out there, don't get me wrong, but if you go to Tesco's and Sainsbury's, there isn't a great deal of options there, and they're not quite there typically.
As does mature cheddar. Every time I come home, I can't wait.
But there's other products. A lot of the ice creams are really good. So I don't think there's a lot of difference between them. So we're getting there in certain areas. I mean, Oatly with their milk brands, the milk products. I mean, I've given Oatly Barista to my dad, and he now prefers it. He's not vegan, but he prefers it to cow's milk. So I think we're getting there on some products.
Yeah, I heard that a lot with Oatly. Yeah, I was just saying that's been something a lot of people have just completely switched to Oatly, so that aren't vegan. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's your aim for the future then is to So I guess part and part you try to improve the products, part try and get more involved on the ground. I'm excited to see what you come up with. I mean, you've got some incredible teams that you can go to brainstorm and get stuff worked out. I mean, I'm trying as well. I'm trying to think of stuff, but like, hey, I reckon you'll come up with it way faster with all these people working behind you. So I'm excited to see what you come up with, something new and special, and that kicks things up again. Hopefully, we're all counting on you.
Well, it's
no pressure.
I'm just one individual, David. It's a team effort. I mean, we do need to get on with each other a lot better. We need to be nicer to each other. We need to accept that there's different ways of doing things. And I think one thing that's clear is just because you're vegan doesn't necessarily mean that you're a nice person. You can be vegan and quite aggressive and nasty to other people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a small proportion of vegans that are like that, but there is a few around, and they create all sorts of issues in the movement. That's why I don't pay a lot of attention to it. I try not to anyway. Try not to get involved, but I mean, I have been looking into what I think is the most effective forms of vegan advocacy, and documentaries have been hugely influential on films generally. So we need, as a movement, to create more persuasive arguments and better produced documentaries and films, get them into mainstream, and hopefully that'll switch more people. Social media generally, it's difficult because a lot of the platforms don't let you share graphic footage. They block it and what have you. So sometimes it's difficult to get that information out there. But we should still keep looking for persuasive ways of sharing short videos that, like with me, it was a 5-minute video that switched me for the rest of my life. And changed me. Word of mouth, is so important, and just generally keep being nice and being effective. And I think there is probably a need. I'm talking to some people around better training for activists so that they
definitely
are being as effective as they possibly can. I haven't got the answers, but it's just intuition at the moment. We're not annoying people, we're actually persuading people.
Yeah. Or annoying,
Yeah,
then persuading.
yeah,
Got to catch their attention. Got to annoy them first, get their attention, then persuade. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely agree.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's been amazing to have you here. You have got a lot of insight and honest, quite frankly, an impressive resume of everything you've been doing and continuing to do so. It's very cool to meet you and have you on, and I'm sure you've inspired a lot of people as well. Do you have anything? Is there anything I've missed that you'd like to mention?
I don't think so, David. Thank you for what you're doing and being a great ambassador and influencing people. I'm sure you've also created so many vegans through your work. So thank you, and inspiring others to be active and to be persuasive, and hopefully, might not happen in our lifetimes, but it's. I think, what do they say about the arc of justice bends to the truth or whatever? But it's. I have a better analogy actually, which I've mentioned a couple of times before, but I don't see my sort of role or any of our roles as being like, we're not in a 100-meter race where we're going to see the finishing line in our
Right.
lifetimes. I see it as being more like a relay race, and we're probably, all of us at the moment, if we think that we're doing the second leg at the moment, and we've got to hand the baton on to somebody else, and they're going to hand the baton on to somebody else, and then eventually we'll get there in the future.
100% agree. 100% agree. I think we're building foundations that we're not going to see the fruit. We're not going to see the fruits of our labors at all. I don't think we'll see little things, but yeah, we're building a foundation for somebody else to build something on it, and then, or maybe they're just building a foundation on ours, and it'll just keep on.
Yeah.
Eventually, there'll be something there, but I'm not entirely sure we'll see it, but that's not a reason to not try and keep
No, exactly,
building for the
exactly.
next
Yeah,
generations. Yeah.
there could be a nuclear war or climate change wrecks everything. But in the meantime, what do we do with our times? We've got, animals are suffering, the world's
Yeah.
going to pot, so we've got to do our best. That's it. So keep at it.
You too, mate. I will see you at the camp out. Are you going yourself? Will you be there?
Hoping to. Yeah, the team are definitely there. So
Cool.
please do go say hello.
Awesome. We'll do. Cool. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.